Hello and welcome back to Blackwatch Intel. My name is Crashy, and today we have a very special guest. It's the Junkrat man himself, PvpTwitch. How are you doing today, man?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. I'm super excited to have you on the channel. And today it's going to be different. We're not talking about Junkrat. It's not going to be an interview or anything like that. So it's kind of a niche thing that we have going on here. But lately, there's been a lot of discussion about having a role queue system and a preferred role system, something like that, of that nature in Overwatch. And I think it's definitely something people are kind of thinking about because of the frustrations of the competitive ladder and just, wanting to add something to the game to, make it a little bit better. And there's a lot of stuff floating around, and ultimately I was just going to be introducing you to the idea that we've actually shared here on this channel and the idea that I've had and been kind of working on, and to get your thoughts. So in general, what's your opinion, at least from what you've seen, on a system like this, preferred or, locked role queue or whatever you've seen?
In general, I do think it's a better idea than just having it completely random, because I mean, the main issue right now is when you queue up a game, you end up getting 5 DPS mains on your team, including yourself if you're a DPS main, and then you got 3 people that are stubborn that won't switch, and then you have someone that can't play anything else, so he's terrible, and then you just lose the game and everyone's toxic. So having some type of preferred role system or something that they could do to make it so it splits up roles a little bit would probably help a lot with toxicity and probably raise the quality of games a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree. I think what instantly turns a lot of people away, without even sometimes paying attention to what's being proposed, is the idea of locking someone into a role. I think that's like the number one thing I've read and seen that a lot of people really just don't like. Like, well, I don't really want to be stuck on this. I want to have the freedom to swap. And that's cool, but I think and this is the best way I've been explaining it, I think it's about giving up a little bit of our freedoms to have a little bit more structure. And you see stuff like that in society all the time. You have to give up a little bit to have an infrastructure that makes sense. And it is frustrating whenever, you have a team full of DPS mains or, 3 or 4 Mercy mains or support mains, and it just doesn't seem like your team, even though the SRs were, rather even, or the matches were match made evenly, you never really had a chance. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the system that I've kind of been working on and what I've been thinking about, and I'd like to get your reaction to it, and just any questions, any thoughts you have, go ahead and bring them up. So the queue system that I'm thinking of is a weird mix of having multiple roles that you can queue for or prefer, and actually having some roles that are going to be locked. So I know that's the one thing that Blizzard has really not liked, but I think in terms of this particular instance, it's going to be somewhat more acceptable. So the compositions, what a team would be made up of in terms of what you would queue for, is going to be a dedicated tank, a dedicated support, a dedicated DPS, and 3 flex players. Now this is important because the first 3 roles, the flex, or the DPS, the support, and the tank, those are going to be roster locked to that class. And I know, again, that's not the best thing in the world, but it's going to provide that little bit of structure while still leaving a lot of room for creativity on the flex side. And the flex roles, the other half of the team, will have the whole roster open. So the first thought is the locked roles will not be able to swap, but the flex roles should be able to pick up enough of the creativity side of the team comp and should be flexible enough to make pretty much any team comp you want. The only thing that I can say confidently that this system doesn't take care of is if we ever hit a point in the meta where, say, running no tanks or no healers was viable. And I don't know that I think we'll see that.
Yeah. So I mean, I like the concept, because every single game that you play, you're guaranteed just need to have 1 support, 1 tank, and 1 DPS. There's like, you just don't. It's not really traditional to be missing any role, and I feel like guaranteeing to have 1 of each would make games a lot better. But there are pros and cons. So I don't know if you want me to get into.
Yeah, sure.
Right
Yeah,
now,
go on ahead and bring up whatever thoughts you have on your mind, because there's been a lot of scenarios where someone would say, well, in this scenario, a Genji is countered by a Winston, and he wants to swap, or your team wants him to swap, but he's a one trick, and now you need to counter him, but he's not going to swap off. And my response to scenarios like that is if the team is being cooperative, if people aren't taking advantage of the system, because there are still flaws in it, then the other flex player should be able to compensate for what the team needs, or the dedicated DPS player himself, or the tank could just swap himself. So there's a lot of room for those types of scenarios where, like, what if X, Y, Z type scenarios in this kind of system, and it ultimately comes down to the team needing to decide to want to win rather than being stubborn. And that's what I'm hoping that little bit of structure will implement, because I know there's everybody out there that has played a single round of, you know, competitive Overwatch, and after that first round your whole team is on tilt, and then all of a sudden you have 5 DPS. And at very least with this type of a system, you would alleviate a lot of those issues, not to mention issues of having, you know, multiple mains of a certain role on the same team.
Yeah. So I think, just to point out, like, maybe a con or a potential con that I could see is I'm not really sure how they would completely balance the system around people selecting Autolock roles like that. I don't know if there would be a split between the advantage or disadvantage of queuing flex or queuing DPS or queuing support in terms of gaining SR. I'm not sure if that would really change anything or not. Maybe another downside I could see is you have that one person that maybe only plays Hanzo no matter what, and he queues up DPS role and he's just only gonna play Hanzo. And there are some times when you have those players on your team, you can convince them to switch off to, like, Lucio or some other hero that you know, might be more beneficial for your team. But if they queue up and they're in the DPS slot and they're picking Hanzo, and you guys are getting rolled, but they're unable to switch to another role like Lucio or whatever, then that might be a huge problem with the system. So I think I'm not really sure, because, you know, it's a pretty complex issue and idea, but maybe making it so instead of making it so the person that auto locks that role can still pick other heroes from the other roles, but in terms of just balancing out the lobby before it starts, it guarantees that there's always one person that wants to play tank, there's always one person that wants to play healer, and there's always one person that wants to play DPS. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that kind of falls more in the category of a preferred role system rather than, you know, the role queue system where you specifically jump in for a certain role. And I think as long as we acknowledge that that's better still than what we have on live, I am definitely open to them just adding lobby structure and not locking anything. I think my idea was more going the extreme, but even so, that would definitely make the game better, because like you said, you could convince him, or he could, you know, play something he's a little bit more comfortable with. Another thing that's been commented in our comment section of our previous video, or our first video on this, was the idea of between rounds, whether, you know, it's control point or whatever, after the first round, you could vote for 2 people to swap a role. So it would lock them in for potentially at least 1 full round, but say he's just like, say a tank player, you know, he locked in the tank role when he queued, but he says, hey team, you know, I'm really off my game, I really think I need to go support. Well, maybe they could, you know, vote for each other, or, you know, kind of queue up a role swap system. Now, obviously, this is all super hypothetical, because this is a huge system that would have to be developed, you know, on Blizzard's end. But ideas like that, where, you know, you do want to alleviate some of those weird scenarios, I think could be worked on. And yeah, I think again, anything is better than what we have on live with just the total, you know, mayhem arcade mode competitive we're playing.
Yeah, I mean, there are those games, and it does happen quite frequently, where you just get super unbalanced team, like 3 Mercy 1 tricks and 3 DPS only players, and it just makes the whole lobby really unenjoyable. So I feel like having the auto lock role system would definitely clean that up, but it might open up other problematic areas that we don't really realize until you really put it into testing. But I'm kind of in between the current system and the auto lock role system. I do kind of like the preferred system best, just because you do have that leeway to get people to switch to other heroes. And I mean, Overwatch, it's a game of counters, and ideally it's a game of flexibility. Obviously that doesn't always happen, because you do have stubborn players, and you know, you just have people that are just best with some heroes and they can't necessarily flex. So I don't know. I see another con with the Autolock system is that in the future, if let's say that system's implemented and then 3 seasons from now, you have those players that just stick to the one hero and the one role lock and they just never switch. I feel like with having it more flexible, it does open people's minds up into learning other heroes and branching out a little bit, because there are those games where they do play other heroes and maybe they're like, oh, okay, well, I'm actually playing pretty well with this. For example, I used to play on console. Not a lot of people know that, but I've had those really crappy games where I just whip out a Hanzo because I'm just like, okay, well, obviously we're getting wrecked, but I mean, if I can hit a headshot with Hanzo every couple of times, we might be able to turn this around. And I've completely carried games with Hanzo. Like I didn't realize I could do that, but it opened my mind to Hanzo and learning how to play him, and respecting other people for playing him. And I don't know. I feel like it's better in general to keep things more open-minded, but there are pros and cons to everything, so you never really know until you put it into testing, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely, if it did ever become a system that was developed, I'd definitely like to see how Blizzard went about it and how the community's reaction to it, say if it was on PTR or came into the game as an arcade mode for quick play originally or something like that. And again, I'll still support the preferred role system as much as I can, because I think anything structure-wise, just having the ability to have people more willing to communicate about creating a comp based on what they've themselves picked to go into the match, with the icons and the preferred roles next to their name, is still going to be a great help. Now, in terms of the system I've proposed, the one con that a lot of people have said is, oh, well, it's going to kill queue times. And I do kind of sympathize with that, but I guess I just wanted to bring it up to kind of cover that just in case someone was thinking it already. I do kind of sympathize with that, but at the same time, I know a lot of people, including myself, that would be willing to wait, a little bit extra or even, a while extra to get better quality of games. And I don't know, it's just, I think the scenarios that kill me the most are where everybody's beaten after the first round, it's just been a tough game,
Yeah.
Nobody's getting along, and then all of a sudden you have a Bastion, Torb, Junkrat, May, and it's just those scenarios where you're not losing because one person's throwing or one person's one-tricking, but the whole team collectively has just given up entirely, where that little bit of structure, even if it's people picking what roles they're willing to play, could go a really long way.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, this system isn't new, really. I mean, this is what they do in WoW, right?
I mean, yeah, more or less. Just the complexity of it
like
is the
rated
hero
battlegrounds.
swapping. Yeah.
Yeah. So like in rated battlegrounds, you queue up with a group and everyone has their hero and their role, and it doesn't change, right? I guess that's what makes Overwatch different, is that you have the ability to switch heroes in the middle of the game. So I mean, the system does have some some background to it, and it works in other games, so you could really see it implemented effectively in Overwatch. I think it really would change things a lot, but I'm not really sure. It should go into the PTR for some testing, but Blizzard, it probably won't happen, but it would be really nice to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Only time can tell.
Yeah, well, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, I'm just excited to get the idea out there, at least talked about more. I know Valkia, if you saw, he did his mock-up of kind of the preferred image, and I really feel like he unfairly got ripped to shreds for that. And
yeah,
I mean, because it's
a
now that said, I don't necessarily agree with being able to queue up for defense, because I think it should just be simplified. If you're gonna simplify it, if you're gonna go with a preferred role system where there aren't any locks, it should just be, I'm a damage player, I'm a tank player, I'm a support player, and keep it really simple. Keep people available to make swaps without just someone queuing up and saying, hey, I'm a defense Hanzo player only, because that's not gonna change anything in the games anyways. It just looks weird. But again, I think he was unfairly kind of ripped to shreds on his idea, because everybody just wants the game to be a little bit better, and we're floating in this, like I said, arcade total mayhem type of competitive ladder that we have going on, and it just doesn't seem fun at some points. And I think that's definitely adding to a bit of the burnout, on top of various balance issues and things like that.
Yeah, if they do implement the system, I would like to see them change some heroes around. Make like Metro take her off support, because I feel like they do need to just make support healers only. Because you might have that person that auto lock support, and then they play Symmetra, and then you might be stuck without a healer, guaranteed. So, maybe even merging the DPS and defense categories, but that would have to be something that they talk about when if they ever made the system an actual thing. I
Yeah.
don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the concept of having a defense hero is more or less irrelevant. I mean, they don't really have to be defense. Obviously, you can see how effective Junkrat is, especially with his changes on
Yeah.
PTR. He's not a defense hero. He's not meant to just stand behind the wall and shoot at the choke. He can do so much more than that. And same for Widow and Hanzo and all of the other heroes. So it's
Yeah.
I mean, attack bastion can be a thing. So I mean, you've seen it before. It's just it's
Yeah,
just kind of
actually,
an odd class to create.
I tell people all the time, especially like even today when I play on a Smurf account and people don't know who I am, they'll be like, Junkrat, what are you doing? Get off Junkrat. And like, I'll be playing it on attack and they're like, why don't you just play it on defense? And I'm just like, dude, Junkrat's actually, he's better on attack than he is on defense.
And I think the same goes for Widow. I mean, she's always
yeah,
just
the
been
same goes
amazing
for
on
Widow.
attack.
The same goes for Hanzo. In my opinion, the same goes for Torb on some maps, especially payload. I think Torb is infinitely better on payload on attack than it is on defense. Same with Bastion, just because a lot of the defense heroes really lack mobility compared to a lot of the offense heroes. And getting a pick with Hanzo is on offense is a lot more valuable than it is getting on defense, because they're always going to come back. But on offense, you just keep making pushes forward and forward. And dying on defense is way more important than it is on offense.
Yeah,
on offense,
sure.
you can die 3 times, and it might not even matter. Where on defense, you die once, and you're gonna lose the game because of it.
Yeah, and I think having the support role just be healers definitely makes sense, because I don't know, Symmetra, like you said, if there is any kind of a system in place, whether it be preferred, with open picks or a lock system, there's room for some weird stuff to go on with that. So
Yeah.
I don't know what they would do with her. I don't know if they just throw her in the DPS category, or even just create a utility category that's kind of like connected, or like a subcategory of the DPS tree. I don't know.
Yeah.
It would be it's going to be interesting to see how they go forward, and if they, at very least, I want to see if they address kind of these ideas and concerns that players have going forward with the competitive seasons, because we've hit season 5, and season 5 is being deemed the worst season and the most mayhem riddled.
That is 100% true. The problem with the Mercy SR gains, along with the constant people one tricking and dive meta lasting for so long and getting so stale, it just really all added up into a terrible experience for season 5. And on top of that, the report system is just absolutely garbage. I mean, you can get reported 100 times, and the only thing they're gonna do is delete or communication ban you, and you can still queue up competitive. And it's kind of ridiculous how you can watch like Tim the Tapman, right? And he has 15,000 viewers, and someone will be throwing on his team, yet that person still won't be banned. I just kind of find that mind-blowing that that someone can get away with throwing in front of that many people with video proof and nothing happens. But
yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. And again, I think I just want to go on ahead and wrap up and say that the overall thought from my perspective has been, I want to add a little bit of structure. I want to add structure so that the players in the games can keep their morale up. I want people to be more willing to communicate and more willing to work together as a team based on what's been built in the system, whether that be, a locking queue or a preferred role. And maybe when you press tab, you can see the 2 icons of what they've queued up for, like under your name, you can see defense and support, or offense and support, damage and support, tank and support. And so you could say, hey, well, you queued up for tank and support, would you mind going Ana? And just be more willing to play as a team. It just feels like the competitive season that we're in now, the competitive mode that we have now, is just so much individualism. There's so much one tricking and people doing their own thing, and there's just no teamwork going on.
yeah, it's just a big cluttered mess sometimes. One thing I wanted to touch up on with what you were talking about earlier, with the some people might complain about extended queue times. What they could possibly implement is make it like a 3-minute, 4-minute queue time that it uses the role system. But if they can't find a balanced lobby with the role system, then maybe it opens up into the standard open lobby system, where it just puts people together. It kind of does that now, but with the SR system, like it tries to make balanced lobbies, but if it's really long queue, then it puts people in unbalanced lobbies. But I mean, some people really don't care, so they'll just wait in the queue anyways. But the people that do care, they could always just cancel the queue and then hit a requeue and start it up again.
Yeah, and that could be like a checkbox option too. Like you could checkbox not to get the long queue, and throw you into the to the kind of like the normal games we have now. Yeah, and I mean that's something that just comes down to preference. Because like I said, for me personally, my goal is not to hop in a game and play whatever I want to play. I'm trying to climb up the competitive ladder. I'm trying to communicate with teams and such. So waiting for a good game, waiting for something that I think would give me a better percentage chance to win, it was something that I'm willing to do. And maybe it depends on the day. Maybe I'm in a hurry and I just want to get a game in, so I uncheck the box and just throw me in the first game they can find, or whatever the scenario is.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you hanging out and having this discussion. It's definitely something that I've just been kind of wanting to push on and get the dialogue started and the ideas flowing, because it's something that a lot of people have thought about, and there's more than one way to do it, obviously, and I think we can see that. So hopefully Blizzard will catch wind of these ideas and these concerns that the players are having, and at least start taking steps to implement something to kind of enrich the experience on the competitive ladder.
Yeah, I've seen a lot about this, people talking about this system and having the preferred or locked roles, and you're the first person that really mentioned, well, maybe we don't need to have it so all 6 players have to autolock, just make it 3 players, and it's probably the best idea I've heard when it comes to this matter. So, I mean, props to you for thinking of it and talking about it and putting it out there, trying to get more people aware of it. So, I hope your voice is heard, and I hope I help out a little bit. And I appreciate you having invited me to talk with you about this. So.
All right. So if anybody doesn't know, and I'm not that vain, but I do want to go ahead and give you your 2 seconds. Where can we find you, man? We definitely want to check out your content.
Yeah, so I stream 7 days a week, PvpTwitch. My YouTube is the same thing, PvpTwitch. I upload about 5 videos a week. I'm known for Junkrat, but I also promote flexing and communication. So if you guys are interested in learning a lot of game sense and learning other heroes on top of the fun Junkrat gameplay, come on over. And I got the Discord and the Twitter if you're interested in that. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm live every day, so feel free to stop on by and say hi.
The man is a god on Junkrat. I've caught some of his extra PUBG streams as well, so definitely give him a follow and check him out. Thank you so much for stopping by this video. Please do not leave without leaving a like, and I'll see you on the next one.
See you later, guys.
Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel the fire inside of me? Do you see the sparks that I'm setting free? Does the beat take you over? You just